Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Bitcoin for Boomers. I have an expert here with me. His name is Alex. I'm going to ask him a few questions. He'll explain it to the best of his ability as though he's talking to people who know nothing about Bitcoin and crypto. And then if you have questions afterwards, please leave them in the comments section. We'll get to them, and on the next episode, Alex will be able to address them. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you.
First question is, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why it is that we could call you an expert in crypto and Bitcoin?
Well, I got into Bitcoin and crypto about 2 years ago when I was researching tokenized assets by mistake, actually. And I basically, as soon as I dug into what Bitcoin was and how it worked and how it functions, I was 100% on board, because originally I was very skeptical without having looked into it. Thought this doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not easily, it doesn't compute with the typical opinion of what money is and how money works. But the reality is that Bitcoin is a new technology. It's 13 years old now, which is battle tested, time tested, and it is the best way to protect your wealth, especially in an environment where governments are printing money like crazy. Inflation is out of control. Even the reported inflation, which is way underreported. And it's censorship resistant. It's operates 365 days a year, 24/7, permissionlessly, with no third-party trust required. It's just once you get into the weeds, it's just a very fascinating technology, though, that is going to take over the financial world, really.
Well, we have a lot of people who are interested in it that are part of a generation who really don't understand the technology. So one of the first questions I get asked when talking about it is, how can I be sure that when I put my money into Bitcoin that I can get it back, because I have nothing tangible? Where is it? Where is this money that I've put in to own a piece of or a whole Bitcoin?
Well, to understand how Bitcoin works and how it stores your wealth, you have to understand what money is. And money is not what we've been taught for our entire lives. For me, certainly, because I've been taught that money is dollars and euros and everything else. And the reality is that's not money. That's the modern day version of money. Before 1971, all money was backed by a certain amount of gold. And now that's not the case. It's backed by absolutely nothing except for fiat. Fiat meaning by decree, meaning the government says it's money, so it is. But why? And so you have to understand what Bitcoin is. You need to understand how does money store your wealth, because that's what it's for. It's to store it for use later. But the reality is that when you store it in fiat, it's like storing it in a depleting battery or an ice cube, where it's melting away, and the value of your dollar is melting at a reported 7% in the U.S., 7.9% in the U.S., and about 6% in Canada. But realistically, with the proper metrics, it's actually more like 15 to 20%, which means within 3 to 4 years, if you store your money in dollars in the bank, you lose about 50% of your money, of your purchasing power. And that's where Bitcoin comes in. Typically, it's been gold in the past. Now, the new version, the advanced version, Gold 2.0, is Bitcoin.
And I think where people have difficulty there is when you talk about dollar bills, you have the actual paper bill. When you talk about gold, you have the brick that you imagine is the gold. When you talk about Bitcoin, it is a very ungraspable concept, because where is it? How do you know if you try to imagine something concrete? How do you relate that to what we're familiar with?
So there's two parts to that question. One is, how does something intangible have value, which I can explain to you, because there's plenty. In our new age, digital age, everything digital has no tangibility. Facebook.com is not tangible, yet it has monster value. Your 98% of dollars in circulation are not bills. They're a digit on your computer screen in your bank, which is actually just a receipt. It's an IOU. It's a receipt that says, yeah, you deposited money here, and subject to all our conditions and terms and timelines and restrictions, we might give it back to you if you request it. That's all it is. It's a digit. And Bitcoin, the difference is Bitcoin is distributed. It's not a digit on a ledger that some bank holds. It's a digit on a ledger among tens of thousands of computers around the world. And so when you say, well, it's not tangible, gold is tangible, but gold is limited. And the value of money comes from certain special properties. It's got to be scarce. It has to be recognizable. It should be portable, divisible, and not easily counterfeit. Um, Gold has the majority of those, but it's not easily portable. Fiat has some of those. It can be ported easily, divided easily, and it's recognizable. But it's not scarce, and it's becoming increasingly more prevalent. You just print it anytime at zero cost, and the fact is the value of anything tends towards its cost of production, and the cost of production of fiat currency is zero. Bitcoin, there is a cost of production. It has to be mined, and that's a more complicated conversation. But
Well, that could be a topic for another day, and that might actually help some of the skeptics understand what the structure of Bitcoin is. I'm using that word loosely because I think that that's where people relate. They can structure paper in their minds, or they can structure a gold bar, but what is the structure of Bitcoin? So that it's very abstract. So if there is somebody who wants to get started in Bitcoin, I think a lot of what the worry is either they will lose the money somehow because it's not tangible, or they'll get scammed out of the money. So do you have any suggestions as to where to go to get started, and how would you suggest that they get started? The people that would like to take a shot at this but really have no idea what the safe way is to do it.
step one would be to get a really good understanding, at least on a surface level, of what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is a distributed ledger technology which runs on blockchain. What does that mean? It sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook words. What it means is that the amount of Bitcoin that each person has is stored on a database, a ledger, a spreadsheet, that's distributed among tens of thousands of computers. And all it is a piece of software. So when you buy Bitcoin, you have access to your seed phrase, which is a 12 or 24 word seed phrase, and that gives you 100% access and control to your Bitcoin. Nobody else can control it. Nobody else. There's no customer service. There's no headquarters to call. It's 100% your responsibility, but it's also 100% you only who can access it. No government can confiscate it. No CEO can be coerced into giving it, to somebody else. It can't be inflated away. There's a maximum of 21 million, so there's never ever going to be inflated Bitcoin supply. And it's also permissionless. You can take it with you anywhere in the world, across any border, just by memorizing the words or keeping them on what's called a wallet. And nobody can control it but you. And that comes with certain responsibilities. If you make a mistake, you got nobody to call and say, hey, where's my money? The money has to be protected by you, and you got to understand how to use it. And it's not complicated. It just requires some digging.
Now, is there a risk of government regulating this because they are putting their ears up and listening very carefully to the increased interest in Bitcoin, because I know people want to protect their assets? And is there a chance that they may find a way to control it?
They can't control it. They will definitely regulate it. They're already trying to regulate it, to varying degrees across the world. But it can't be controlled. It can only be regulated at its point of use, meaning you can twist the arm of a business to not accept it, for example, or you can twist the arm of a bank not to let you use it. But you cannot twist a Bitcoin owner's arm to give it to you. It's not possible. He has 100% control, subject to nobody. And there is no ability to go to a CEO or a headquarters or a Bitcoin owner and say, hey, you give me your Bitcoin. We're confiscating it. That's not possible. There's no such thing. They've tried to ban Bitcoin in countries like China, Russia, India, and every time they do, Nigeria, when they do, the cost of a Bitcoin just goes through the roof because people want it, and it can't be taken from you, and it's also uncontrollable as far as government and institutions, and so they will try to regulate the use of it, but they will not be able to confiscate it, and that's the beauty. You look at situations like Canadian bank accounts being frozen, or Russian, 600 billion Russian owned US dollars being confiscated from Russia. Those are very concerning because that's only going to escalate in the current environment, and you got to protect your money, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, and we saw that with the trucker convoy, as you just mentioned, and people got worried about that and are still worried about that, and just don't know how to go about distributing their assets into something that seems on the surface to be safe, like Bitcoin, but again is just an unknown. And hopefully some of our conversations will give people an idea as to how they can break through that barrier. Where would you suggest they go to begin? Are there a couple books you'd recommend, or some sites where they could get in at very junior level in terms of understanding?
Yeah, so a fantastic book to read that's not overly complicated but really gives you a good understanding of money and Bitcoin is called The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. That's a really good book to read. And as far as, and also YouTube is a great place to find a few introductory videos. There's a couple YouTubers. One is Coin Bureau. He's really good. He'll give you a very good understanding of Bitcoin and other cryptos. And really all you need is to find a reputable exchange, and that'll depend on what country you're in. But ones like Crypto.com are pretty safe. Binance is safe. For a really simple use, one that's also safe, Swissboard. I would start with first learning and understanding a little bit more about Bitcoin, and then using an exchange to get in. And once you've used an exchange, which kind of cuts out all the mistake possibilities, the errors, then you can dive into self-custody, which is really important. And that'll be where you take your Bitcoin or your cryptos and you ship it from the exchange, which is kind of like a bank, to your own wallet, which can't be touched by anybody.
And maybe we can try to figure out how to show that as a step-by-step in future episodes that we do. So I'll leave you to have the final word, and I'll just suggest to viewers that if you have questions that come out of this short episode, you leave them in the comments section, and then Alex and I will get to them, or Alex will get to them, and we will try to deal with them on subsequent episodes depending on the interest that this generates. So final thoughts from you, Alex?
Yeah, I would just suggest that now is probably the most important time to protect your wealth. It's out in the open. It's being stolen from your back pocket on a regular basis. And the best way to think about Bitcoin, which is frankly the solution, is as a gold 2.0. It's a store of value. But the beauty of it is it cannot be confiscated like gold can. It's easy to bring with you anywhere. It's almost infinitely divisible, and it can't be inflated, which gold can. So I would kind of think of it as a gold 2.0, the next generation of gold, and diving into it is extremely important, in this environment right now.
And get in while the going is good.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Very appreciated, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good.